It's an honor and a privilege, Andy. Again, thank you, and thanks to all of the co-sponsors for bringing me here. I am going to now tell you something that will make you think I'm not much of a sports journalist. I've been in the business, I know we shouldn't say how long, because you can do the math, but I've been in the business for 32 years, and this is my first time ever in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to which you should immediately say, what kind of sports journalist are you? How have I missed it? Now, I will say that I have covered your football team, your amazing football team, in many bowl games and BCS games. So I have covered Alabama football, and I've been around the team. But this is the first time I've been to your home base and to this beautiful campus. And so, it is, as I said, it's a great honor, and I thank you so much for the hospitality and the kindness. Thanks for arranging this beautiful day and this beautiful weekend. I must acknowledge my dear friend, Stuart McLaurin, who is in the audience, who is an Alabama grad, and if there is a bigger Alabama football fan, and there might be, but I sure have not met him or her. Stuart, thank you so much for giving me the primer about Tuscaloosa and Alabama and now being here today. And I will be Stuart's guest at the football game. I'm going to be a fan. I'm not going to be in the press box, and I do have some red, crimson with me, so I definitely don't have any of that orange color stuff. And what color orange is that, by the way, right? It's not even orange, it's whatever it is. But and then I'll be back in Washington, D.C., where I'm based by Sunday afternoon. But I'm just thrilled to be here on your campus. And thank you so much. And I do also have to tell you that for those of us growing up in the North, I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, in the suburbs of Toledo. I went to Northwestern University, where we didn't have to worry about football when I was in school. And things are better now, but still, we're not quite at that Alabama level yet, not even close. But anyway, but I feel like I grew up with Alabama, and I'll tell you why. When I was growing up, we would, on New Year's Eve, my siblings and I would be home. Our folks might have a party or be out at a party or something. So we're like early teens, high school age, whatever. And we would watch, we love football, went to Michigan games, and we're huge fans of Big Ten football. But we'd also watch it on TV. And on New Year's Eve, for those of us of a certain age, you remember that the Sugar Bowl was on New Year's Eve. And it was a big deal. And the announcers would wear tuxedos as they were broadcasting the game that night. And invariably, Alabama would be in the game. And of course, I got to know your fight song from watching all those Sugar Bowls and watching Alabama score touchdowns and win games. And I will always associate your fight song with New Year's Eve and those wonderful times with my siblings. So as much as I'm a Northerner and have never been on this campus until today, a big part of Alabama lore and legend has always been a big part of my childhood. And if you love sports, I think in many ways it is that universal kind of common denominator that we all have that in common. So as I said, I'm a stranger coming here for the first time, but in many ways I'm not a stranger at all. And I do love your fight song. And I can't wait to hear it a few dozen times tomorrow. So I'm sure you feel the same way. What I thought I would do here is have this be as fun as possible and as interactive as possible for you. This is your session. Many of you are students here, and I want to make this as open and free-flowing as possible. So I thought I would do is speak for a little bit about the topic, which is diversity in sports and where we are in the 21st century on that topic, but then open it up for questions, which could be on anything, any topic at all. So please get your questions ready. This is your chance. I get to ask all the questions usually. Well, this is your chance to turn the tables on me. This is your chance to, you've got a member of the lamestream media up here, folks, the mainstream sports media, and you can have at it. Anything, it's all on the record, anything and everything is fair game. So I will go through a few thoughts, and then I would love to open it up for questions. The topic is, Andy and I were musing and emailing for months on this issue, the idea of diversity in sports, and the real question that I think, Andy, you posed more to me than I posed to you, which is sports leading the way, or is sports following? And when we think about issues of diversity, it's a wide world of sports, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just the obvious, race or gender. It's Jason Collins and coming out as the first openly gay man who was at that time playing a sport in team sports in the U.S. As I mentioned, of course, women, it's Billie Jean King, it's Title IX. It's the Washington NFL team, the nickname that we have talked about a lot and continue to talk about that name of that team, and a name that I've decided I will not use anymore. even as I understand and respect people who continue to want to use it. It's frankly, it's a conversation about steroids in sports. It's Lance Armstrong. It's from Lance Armstrong to A-Rod, and we know those stories just this year alone. What a year it's been, 2013, in terms of news in sports. Most of the things I'm talking about have had, if not been part of this year in sports, have bubbled to the surface at some point during this year. Sports, of course, takes us back, diversity in sports takes us back to Jackie Robinson. And the story that I hope many of you have seen the movie if you do not know the story of Jackie Robinson. Muhammad Ali, and obviously being an African-American man, but also being someone who did not want to fight in the Vietnam War, something my father couldn't stand, but something that really brought the nation to a conversation on that topic. There are issues of disability in sports, obviously diversity in that sense, the Paralympics, but then you've got Oscar Pistorius, and that amazing and tragic story that will play out over the next year or so, the Blade Runner who now is charged with murdering his girlfriend. You've got the Penn State story, again, not necessarily diversity, but from the standpoint of sports taking us to these conversations that I think are so important in our country. The old line was that sports is the toy department of the newspaper, the sports section, or the toy department of the news, whatever the station would be, a radio, TV, newspaper, whatever, that it was the escape, right? The sports section, if you'd grab for it, or remember your parents would grab for it, it would be, okay, good. I'm away from the real news. I don't have the A section. I don't have the Metro section. I've got sports, and it is an oasis for me from the real world. Well, today, more and more, the sports section is a mirror of our society. And in fact, if you grab for the sports section, or even if you just go online and click and look at sports, the odds are you might be reading or hearing about some of those stories I just mentioned. And you might, if it's a newspaper, you might say, wait a minute, did I pick up the A section by mistake? No. In fact, you did not. This is, of course, sports today. I'm not here to apologize for it or to praise it. It's just a reality. Sports is now much more, as I said, a mirror of our society, and we are dealing within the sports pages and in sports journalism with issues that we really would never have dreamt of dealing with, if not one generation ago, certainly 2 generations ago. I actually think that's a good thing because, as I mentioned a moment ago, sports takes us to conversations that I think it's good that we have as a country, whatever side of the issue you are on, involving, say, the Washington NFL team nickname. That's a good conversation for our country to have. I would make the same case about Title IX or about gay rights, about almost certainly about race relations, which is an issue that we should never stop talking about until hopefully someday we don't have to talk about it. But these are issues, if you think about it, and my take and my idea here is that sports actually can lead the way for a reluctant nation to have these conversations. And why is that? What is it about sports? Well, certainly, again, there is that common bond that no matter what we may agree or disagree on politically, or what religion we are, or where we came from, you can all cheer for the same team. Tomorrow, you will be doing that in your beautiful stadium. That's what sports it brings. It allows us all to come together. The story about in Washington, where I've lived since 1984, that NFL team brings everyone together like nothing else in Washington. Democrats, Republicans, and whatever. They agree about one thing. They're going to go cheer used to be at RFK Stadium, now at FedEx Field, every Sunday. And that's, I think, a good thing. But if sports does that, if sports bonds us together, I also would make the case that it can take those things that tear us apart and allow us to have these conversations. And whether you were cheering for Lance Armstrong or kind of curious and wondering, was he the real deal 5, 6, 7 years ago? Sadly, unfortunately, now we know. We know for sure, and it's terrible. But it's a conversation that then hopefully can take all of us to have a chat with a child or a nephew or a niece or a friend who's playing sports about performance-enhancing drugs and all of those issues. So again, I would say that sports really does give us that opportunity. And while we might look at it as a kind of a sad thing, I'm sure you've had conversations with your parents, like it's not like the old days. It was great when we didn't have to deal with all these issues. And I'm more of the mindset, yes, it's different now, but in many ways, because we have a more diverse media, we have these conversations. And I'll explain that. The idea of, you may have heard these stories from many years ago, Babe Ruth, the story goes, would be go running through the train on the way to another baseball game with the New York Yankees, and the writers all would be on the train with him, and he'd be chasing some woman, and Babe had very few clothes on, and the woman had very few clothes on, and they'd go running through the train, and all of the sports journalists, all of them men, all of them white men, would look up as they're playing cards and go, I didn't see that. Did you see that? Nope, I didn't see that. And there would go the greatest name in baseball history, half naked through the train chasing a woman who was not his wife. And can you imagine what would happen if that occurred today? the reaction on Twitter, right? If those guys had Twitter, Facebook, the cell phone pictures, right? And while we can, again, lament, and I understand totally the idea of, oh, wow, maybe it was good that we didn't know that generation, people like yourselves back then didn't know that about Babe Ruth, could just go and cheer for him. I would make the case that we can make more informed decisions as consumers of sport by knowing that information is a good thing. And then you can make the decision if you want to go buy baseball tickets to a game, or you say, hey, I'm so sick of steroids in baseball, I don't want to go and pay for those tickets, and we'll go to watch the Alabama baseball team or the Alabama softball team play. We're not going to drive over to Atlanta to watch a game. Let's watch a minor league game, or let's do something else. That's your choice. But it's a choice because you've got information.